Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Notorious Momz, the podcast. I am here with Phil, my guest. Hello, guest.
Hello, good morning, good evening, everybody.
How are you? Well, he said good morning, good evening because he is in Korea. And
Yep.
it is, what time is it?
At time of recording, 7:03 in the morning, Korean Standard Time.
Ugh, it's 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
So, good evening to me. Good morning to you.
yeah.
So, Phil, tell the people who you are, what you do.
So my name's Phil, but I go by the Blerd Explorer on TikTok and IG. I'm a Black travel influencer. I wrote two travel guides for Black people, for Black brown folk, called the Black Travelers Guide to Incheon, South Korea, and for Daegu, South Korea.
Nice. So, where did this come from? Like what made you want to start to do this?
Well, I kind of always wanted. Well, before coming to Korea back in uh, late 2015, early 2016, I was, doing research about, what's it like to live in another country as a Black person, right?
Oh.
And also looking at different like travel content creators, and I know it's like most of these content creators, articles about living in Korea, mostly came from a white perspective, right?
Right.
And don't get me wrong, this they have some good material, that's good information, but also, with our skin tone, we're going to be travel different, especially in Asia for sure, right?
Right.
And especially because a place where like particularly East Asia, like Korea, China, Japan, where colorism is still a very cultural and historical problem, societal problem.
Mm.
Um, and so I decided to make my old content about focusing on Black travel specifically, what's like to travel in Korea as a Black person.
Gotcha.
And when COVID hit in 2020, I got put on, I guess you could say, it's a weird situation. I got put on leave.
Hmm.
And for about 8 months, I was kind of stuck at home, still being paid though.
Right.
It was a weird situation. And before I went on leave, I came up with the idea. I was like, okay, what's something that nobody's done before, right? And I realized nobody's really wrote a travel guide for Black people. Like I seen some for like solo women, solo Black women, solo men travel books, and they're good in their own right, of course. But
Hmm.
I figured why not do something for overall general for all Black people,
Right.
Black travel, like regardless of where uh, your stats, I guess, and that's where I came through.
And now you're living in Korea. What did you used to do, or where did you used to live before you moved?
South Carolina.
Oh, wow. That's like that's different. You
Yeah,
went from South Carolina to Korea.
yeah, it's
That definitely must have been a culture shock. How was that when you finally arrived? Do you have family out there? Do you live alone over
I
there?
live alone here. Yeah, of course, like anybody, we move to another place that's where you grew up. Of course, there's gonna be culture shock, especially going from a place where like the USA, where it's like you got like a little bit of everybody from around the world, right?
Right.
Whereas here's Korea's like 96, 97 population is like literally all Korean. Everybody looks the same, has the same hair, has the same skin tone. So it's complete. Of course, I went through my culture shock of living not only living in another, moving out to another city, but also living in another country on the other side of the world.
Right. So as far as like the place where you live, what about like cuz I'm a foodie
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I like to eat.
yeah.
And everywhere I go, I like to try like different things and stuff like that. So was it easy for you to like get acclimated to living there with like the food and the culture?
Uh,
And
Definitely.
what's like the living situation like as far as like apartments, houses?
Yeah. So Korea is with its geography, it is a small country.
Mhm.
So, and of course, with geography, it's surrounded by mountains everywhere, like everywhere. So so it's more common for people to live in apartments than it is to have houses.
Gotcha.
Uh, Even in major cities too, like you'll probably more find people who have apartments than houses. So basically, over here is like buying an apartment is like buying a house in some regards. They get a loan and everything. Uh,
Mhm.
for a nicer, premium upscale houses with more room, of course. Um, but food wise, yeah, Korean food is excellent. It's really hard to recommend what's the best thing to eat because I don't know because everybody has like may have food allergies and fortunately South Korea and really Asian countries food allergies it's just you got if you allergic to like nuts seeds or seafood, shellfish, excuse me, you're gonna have a hard time here because a lot of Korean ingredients could contain one of those following ingredients.
Right. So like,
And of
see, I
course,
know.
also South Korea is not the most vegetarian, vegan friendly place either. Too, a lot of
Oh,
vegetables they do contain like maybe some type of fish sauce or meat based ingredient.
oh, I didn't know that because I thought that like, well, obviously there's places where there's more like vegan friendly. And I feel
Yeah.
like now too, like in the place that we are, I remember I knew vegetarians like way back when,
Hmm.
but now we have so many options, like vegan options. There's so many like restaurants that are
Yeah.
tailored to like vegans and vegetarians. Are you vegan or vegetarian?
No, man, I'm not. I'm not. I mean, I probably should start eating more vegan, vegetarian dishes, at least once, twice a week, though. Um, but it's kind of hard too for me. Uh, but I mean, now there is a bit of a trend. Korea is like a really trendy country. Like if something is popular, they're gonna go all out. So you do see a lot more Korean, no, excuse me, vegetarian, vegan restaurants, but most of them are gonna be like in Seoul, bigger city like Seoul and Busan.
Gotcha.
And of course, if you're near the Buddhist temples and such, you might be able to find something that's vegetarian friendly for the Buddhists because Buddhist monks will eat there. But again, mostly it's gonna be hard to find that.
So you talked about like moving there. How long have you been living there?
Time recording 6 years.
Wow. And so 6 years, that's a long time. When you
Yeah.
got there, like obviously, did you learn Korean before you got there? Like,
No, that was definitely my biggest mistake for sure. Now, do you have to be fluent in Korean to get around? No, but I do suggest it does help a lot, especially learning how to read Korean. To learn how to read alphabet is pretty easy, so that'll take a little bit more practice. So, but speaking Korean, of course, Korean is a very difficult language to learn how to speak. It does take a lot of time and practice. It is possible, but I definitely recommend everybody if you're going to come, whether be traveling, living permanently, you should definitely learn Korean before you come here.
so wow, like I work with some people that are Korean and
Yeah,
I feel like I know like one word.
yeah,
But I'm like, I always think about like moving because I live in New York City, and
mhm,
I'm like, what if I ever decide to like move somewhere else? I don't know if I would live in a different country, maybe a different state, but I don't even know if I would ever like move out of New York.
yeah.
Like
I
that's
don't know.
just
Maybe
like
that's the
not in
thing.
my
Like, is it
cards right
really just
now.
all New Yorkers just never want to leave? Like, it's
Yeah.
hard for it to leave.
Was it easy for you to go when you left?
Oh, definitely.
Like you just
By the time I was 25 when I finished college, like I was ready to move to my parents' place. I wasn't really happy there. Like I was working two terrible retail jobs. Like I was just ready to go.
right. I would suggest. And how's the job market over there now that you're talking about jobs?
Now I'm on an E2 English teaching visa, so unfortunately,
Okay.
South Korea is not the most easiest place to try to get a job that's not outside teaching English. There's not many job visas available unless
Gotcha.
you have like a specialized visa, like say engineering, for example, something like that.
Mhm.
Um, or like if you're doing like the digital aspect thing, it's not really a thing over here in South Korea.
Mhm.
And of course, if you get a certain visa, like you can't really do anything else unless you get like say a residency type visa, which you got to apply for. But you got to
Gotcha.
make but like all countries, every country has its own rules and regulations, and they always change the visa laws all the time. So it can be difficult, especially if you're trying to get like a full time residency visa. They're always changing the rules almost every year, so it's like almost it can be a struggle to try to start applying for that position type of visa. At the
Mhm.
same time, also it's kind of hard to like okay, no, uh, the moment you're ready to start applying for like a residency visa, they can always change the rules at any time.
Right, and then what does that mean that you would have to start the process over again? Like, you would have to
Yeah,
redo the process if the law
probably. Yeah,
changed?
yeah, and of course, obviously, of course, if you marry like a Korean spouse, then of course you have more freedom to do whatever jobs you guys, do whatever you want to do in terms of like look for other jobs that's not really teaching, or you can open up your own business. Uh, Outside of that, you can't really open up your own business in Korea
Mhm.
unless you're married to a spouse. Even if you stayed here for like 20 years and you're fluent in Korean, like you gotta have like I guess I don't know, it's one of those rules that like, each country has their own rules about like trying to open up a business.
Gotcha. So you teach ESL, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So, have you always been doing that? And
Uh,
how, if so, or if
sure.
not, has it been easy or hard? Like, how was it teaching a different language to um people that don't know?
Well, mostly now I started in the for-profit sector of it, called working at the for-profits tutoring centers called Hagwon, particularly English Hagwons, ESL Hagwon. So that has not been the most. There's mostly one of the workshops I worked at throughout my first 5 years now. I recently
Mhm.
switched over to public school, so this one I'm in a really happy position. It's definitely giving you more respect to people who are not where whose first language is not English. Now I have a
Mhm.
real understanding of that, like why people struggle. And of course, like me, I was like ignorant Americans, like, oh, why they can't learn English? Why learn the language, you know? But I think it's like when you leave the country, when you travel outside your comfort zone, it's like you really do learn more things. It's like, oh, that makes sense, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
you realize, like, oh my god, I was being so like this really stereotypical ignorant American, like I just know any better.
Right. Until you're, like, in the thick of it.
Yeah,
I deal
exactly.
with a lot of people too that when they come and they see me, because I work in the medical field, and they sometimes, a lot of them don't know English,
Yeah,
and I try to be as, like, empathetic and as helpful as possible. Sometimes, they come in, my first language is Spanish, so I
right.
learned Spanish before I learned English. So I try and help out, like, my Spanish speaking patients a lot.
Mhm.
But the other ones, like, my other patients, I call, like, interpreter services, and it's hard. Like, I've spoken to people that have tried to learn even Spanish, and they say that it's difficult. I feel like learning a different language, it's just hard. Like,
Yeah,
unless you
especially as
know.
an adult. Especially as an adult.
Right, right,
Because
because
obviously,
when you're a kid.
yeah, because I was like you said, as a kid, like it's easy. You can pick up much things easy. You have more free time to like study and try to learn as you go. Whereas as an adult, like especially you got kids, you got your family, got kids, and other responsibilities. It does make it more difficult to take the time to study. Even for me, like
Right,
I'm trying now, I'm in a good spot. I'm trying to learn Korean too, but sometimes I got to push myself to actually sit down and pick up the pen and try, study.
right. I mean, I applaud you for that, because
Yeah,
I've tried learning, different languages before, and I was just like, "Ah, I'm not gonna do it."
yeah. And
Because
I
I
think it's
feel
also
like
the
it
American, the
doesn't make
weird.
sense.
Yeah, I think for Americans, it's like we really don't have much of a drive to learn another language because most of us don't live in the spot where learning a second language is like necessary. Obviously, if you're like New York City, you got many options to choose from in terms of languages. Unless you like say live in Portland, Seattle, LA, or near the Mexican border, like Arizona, Texas, is like okay. Most of us don't
Right,
really have that much of a center or drive to learn Spanish or another language.
right,
Like there's no real push for it because there's not really opportunities to practice it.
right. I mean, like, I guess they teach you in school, like, as you're coming
Yeah,
up, but
right. They do.
I don't feel like it's the, I wouldn't say, like, the improper way, but I feel like it doesn't stick at that point.
No, it
You know,
really does.
you're
And looking back, uh, as a as an adult now, it's like okay, sometimes I kind of wish I lived in a spot where I had the opportunities to actually really practice speaking another language or learn another language. But it's one of those things like when you get older, it's like, dang, I wish I'd done this. I wish I had those opportunities.
Yeah. But I mean, I think you're doing a good thing. It's never too late to learn something new.
Yeah,
I it's harder.
yeah,
It
that's
gets
true.
harder to do, but it's never, like, too late. So, like, when we talk about traveling, have you been anywhere else outside of Korea? Like, as far as traveling?
My first trip, I would say around 7 to 8, was visit my dad. He was stationed in Germany in like the late '90s, we'll say.
Mhm.
But again, I was that young, so I don't really count because I really don't remember it. Remember
Right.
it. So my official trip, I would say, is the Philippines.
Oh.
Uh, I've been in a few times, and that really opened my eyes up to what real poverty looks like. And don't get me wrong, I mean, yes, we have like really stressed out poverty, and some of this is really bad too.
Mhm.
But whereas coming like say Philippines or third world country like that, right? I finally understand, okay, I can't say like our own people, like, yeah, we do have probably we have hood and barracks and whatnot, but like
Right.
at least there they don't really have much opportunities, right? Whereas in the USA, it's like, okay, true. We have racism. We don't have as much opportunity, but we still have a chance to do something. We have a chance to go to school and do other stuff.
Right.
Compared to other places who come from other people who come from third world countries who want to come to the USA. Who want to like give children a better opportunity than they had.
Right. Right. So the Philippines, and
Yeah.
how
Oh,
old were
and
you
also
when you visited
Malaysia
there?
and Portugal and Taiwan.
Oh, how was Taiwan?
I love Taiwan. I've been wanting to go back for years. I went there back in May 2019.
Oh, that was kind of recent. I mean,
Yeah,
not too recent because we'll soon be going into 2023.
yeah, yeah.
So, Phil, give me like what kind of tips and tricks you would give to us people of color that are traveling in different countries like Korea or Taiwan or um, things like that.
For my black and brown folk, unfortunately, you're going to get stared at when it comes to when you're traveling to Asia, particularly East Asia, like because a lot of times especially in the case of Koreans, most Koreans really never see people who look like us all the time.
Gotcha.
Uh, Now, of course, in Seoul, I'll say they're not gonna go crazy about it, right? Uh, but outside of the big cities like that, you're gonna get more and more looks, mostly because these are curiosity. So keep that in mind, because again,
Mm,
uh, most Koreans, if they don't really interact with outside their own circle of friends and family. So that's a cultural thing for one. Also, if they ever do interact with a foreigner, it's mostly a white person, almost always. Even if you look at the demographics, like say ESL teachers in Korea, most Koreans' first interaction with foreigners is always a white person.
gotcha.
So most of the times, and especially you may see in videos or clips about Koreans looking, reacting when you see a black person. That is unfortunately true to that statement. Especially me, because I'm tall. Like I'm a 2 meter 6'7" black man. So of course I get like crazy. But
Right.
now I can let kids slide, especially like elementary younger because they're kids, right? I can let them slide. They're young. Obviously as the adult too is like, okay, you're all too damn old to act like that. Calm down.
Right. Right. Um, yeah, I mean, that's like do you feel like there's a lot of like racism
Yeah,
in
there
Korea?
is, especially colorism, against people of color, especially against Southeast Asians for sure. Uh, and of course, I would say in terms of racism, it's more ignorance towards people of
Mm,
color. Because if they do get racism, it's mostly it's not a malice like here in the US. It was like, yeah, we just freaking hate you, like Jim Crow laws like racism.
right.
Uh, I would say it's more xenophobia against all foreigners. Uh, Especially during COVID times too, for sure.
Oh,
Yeah, the xenophobia ramp did go up high because they always believe that it's foreigners because it's easy for Koreans to blame foreigners for stuff when we didn't do anything.
right, right,
Of course, I remember back in I want to say March 2021, I recently moved out of Incheon, and the government of the province they told all foreigners they had to get mandatory testing, and of course, all the white people online were starting complaining about how this is racism, this is discrimination, this isn't fair. And of course, all the black and brown folk were like, "Really? Kind of sucked up."
Well, I mean, did that include everyone, Koreans included,
No,
or
just
it
all
was
foreigners. Just all
oh,
foreigners.
everyone from
Everybody outside of Korea, all foreigners had to at the time had to go
right.
get tested.
So do they still have like the mask mandates and stuff like that over there as
They
well?
recently relaxed their mask mandates, so back in May, so you can walk around without a mask if you don't want to. But of course, when you're indoors, you still gotta wear a mask.
In a lot of places.
Right, and they got rid of the QR codes over the summer too, so you don't have to use a QR code to get into the places anymore. Uh, but you still gotta especially for the certain jobs like me. I work in school, so I had to get vaccinated. But
Right.
I was going to get vaccinated regardless, and I'm glad I did because I got COVID back in April of this year.
Oh,
Yeah,
how
I
was
was triple
that?
vaccinated anyway, so I was good to go. Thankfully, first few days was terrible, but thankfully no coughing or sneezing. Like my Korean co-teacher, she just got COVID. She's recovering from that, and she's still having a cough.
Yeah, that's so funny because I caught COVID too. I just caught COVID back in June of this year.
Ooh,
And I didn't have a cough at all.
yeah,
Like
me too.
I had no cough. I had everything else except the cough, and I was kind of
Yeah,
grateful for that because I'm like, I lost my sense of taste and smell for a little bit too. That was a little annoying.
yeah,
But as far as the cough, I was grateful because I know people that had gotten COVID like months and months ago, and they're still struggling with the stupid COVID cough.
yeah. I hope she gets over that soon too. This is just recently too. Yeah. Same here. When I caught COVID, I did have like almost like flu-like symptoms. Like had lack of energy, headaches, a little bit of drowsiness, but no coughing or sneezing from on my end, thankfully.
That's good. How's the nightlife in Korea? Or do you
Korea is
go out
famous.
a
Yeah.
lot or
Not me as much, especially because I live in small town Korea.
Mhm.
But of course, Korea, especially Seoul, Busan, is famous for its nightlife. So it's not unheard of people going bar hopping, going to different restaurants. Uh, Korea, like when it comes to Korean food, one reason I kind of find it hard to difficult to recommend it is because a lot of Korean dishes is a shared experience. So you share a meal with
Oh,
everybody.
gotcha.
So there's some really great dishes like dakgurutang, jimdok, but you gotta have people with you. Like there's some restaurants you can't eat by yourself there.
Oh,
So
okay.
that would make it a little bit more challenging to recommend foods.
Wow, that's like you can't go into a place and just sit down and eat by yourself?
But not all places, not all places.
Oh.
Just like the well-known Korean dishes. Again, most like some Kimsal, Korean barbecue. Like you gotta have people with you to go there.
Right. I heard of the like the Korean barbecue. I'm sure that it's nothing like how we have it here in the
Yeah.
States. I'm sure it's like much more genuine, like authentic rather.
Oh yeah, people talking loudly, getting drinks, being surrounded by beer, and soju, and meat. Yeah, it's great.
That's cool. And how many hours is the trip over there?
Uh, it really depends what where you're coming from the U.S.
So if
It,
I was coming from New York, let's say. Well,
see, I came from
how
South
long was it
Carolina.
for
That took
you?
me about 16 hours, I think.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah,
That's like
I think that was
driving
me.
to Florida
Yeah,
from
yeah,
where I
yeah,
am. Because Florida is
yeah,
like
yeah.
an 18-hour drive for me.
Oh wow. Yeah, yeah. And speaking of driving, you don't really need a car to get around. There's plenty of buses. There's also the metro in major cities like Seoul, Gwangju, Daegu, Busan, Daejeon. They have the subway systems. Now for like smaller towns or rural areas or like the islands like Jeju or Lungdo Island, yeah, the car will may you don't really need a car, but it does help get around easily because in those small towns the buses aren't as frequent. Like you'll probably wait up to an hour for the bus.
Oh wow, that's a long time. That is a long time for an hour. That's an hour
Yeah.
for a bus?
Up to an hour, yeah, for a bus to get to to where you want to go to. Again, this is a small rural areas.
Gotcha. So what are your next plans? Are you planning on writing another book? Are you gonna stay in Korea? Are you gonna travel some more?
Both, both actually. So they keep teaching for excuse me for a long time. Also, I'm writing a travel guide for South Korea as a whole right now.
Okay.
So actually, I'm going to see a Chongwon right now in the southeast part of Korea. Getting some research done. So I'm about to go out later in the morning to go write some more pictures, take some more pictures, and probably start writing a bit too today in one of the cafes.
Oh, nice. Well, all right. Well, tell the people where they can find you, where they can find your book, any information.
Yeah, sure. You can find my ebooks, The Black Trousers Guide to Incheon, Incheon, and The Black Trousers Guide to Daegu, Daegu, South Korea. And you can also follow me on Instagram at TikTok at the Blerd, Blerd, Explore.
Thank you so much, Phil, for coming on to Notorious Moms. We appreciate you.
Uh, yeah,
And I hope you have a good morning.
yes, yeah. Thank you very much for having me on.
You're welcome. Take care.
Mhm.
Bye.
Mhm.